1,000 missiles, locked, loaded, aimed directly at Iran. That is not a headline exaggeration. That is an exact quote from the President of the United States, posted in the middle of the night, threatening to erase an entire country off the map if anyone in Tehran so much as tries to kill him. And the strange part is not that he said it. The strange part is why he felt he had to. Late on a Friday night, Donald Trump sat down and wrote a message on Truth Social that read like nothing a sitting American president had ever posted before. 1,000 missiles are locked and loaded and aimed at the Islamic Republic of Iran, with thousands more to immediately follow, should the Iranian government act on its threat, pronounced in many corners of the globe, to assassinate or attempt to assassinate the sitting president of the United States of America, in this case, me. He didn't stop there. He added that orders had already been given that the United States military was ready, willing, and able for a full year to completely decimate and destroy all areas of Iran. Read that sentence again. Not a military base, not a regime. All areas of Iran. This wasn't a warning shot. This was the President of the United States telling an entire nation that his death would trigger a war unlike anything the region has seen. And to understand why he said it, you have to go back just a few days to a funeral that changed everything. On July 9th, in the holy city of Mashhad, hundreds of thousands of mourners packed the Imam Reza shrine to bury a man who had led Iran for decades. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, killed months earlier in the opening minutes of a war launched by the United States and Israel. His son, Mojtaba Khamenei, stood before the crowd as Iran's new supreme leader and made a promise that would ripple straight to the Oval Office. He said avenging his father's death must certainly happen, calling it the demand of the nation. And the crowd didn't just listen. They responded. Banners moved through the massive gathering reading, in plain English for the entire world to see, "We will kill Trump." Chants of death to America echoed through the shrine's courtyards. This wasn't a fringe protest. This was the funeral of the country's most powerful man, with his own successor publicly promising vengeance, in front of a sea of people who were, at that exact moment, calling for the American president's death by name. And here's the detail that most coverage buried, the one that actually explains why Trump reacted the way he did. Just before that funeral, Israeli intelligence had reportedly passed the United States a warning that Iran had developed an actual operational plan to assassinate Trump. Not rhetoric, not chanting. A plan, according to a Wall Street Journal report, sitting somewhere inside Iranian intelligence circles, built specifically to kill the sitting president of the United States. So when those banners went up at the funeral, Washington wasn't looking at symbolic anger. It was looking at a stated threat colliding with an active intelligence warning, and that combination is exactly what pushed Trump to write the most explicit nuclear-level threat any American president has made in decades. It's worth pausing here, because this wasn't the only inflammatory line Trump used that week. In a separate exchange reportedly aimed at Iranian officials during talks, he was quoted warning them they wouldn't even make it back to their own country. Language so blunt that even seasoned diplomats in the region reportedly struggled to interpret whether it was a literal threat or simply Trump's trademark theater. That ambiguity itself has become part of the danger here. When a president mixes deadly serious military threats with the same swagger he uses in business negotiations, both allies and adversaries are left trying to guess which version of the statement they're supposed to believe. And in a standoff this fragile, that kind of uncertainty can be just as dangerous as the threat itself. But this story gets even stranger once you understand the history sitting underneath it. This isn't the first time Iran has had a very personal reason to want an American president dead. Back in 2020, a U.S. drone strike killed Qasem Soleimani, one of Iran's most powerful military commanders, a man many Iranians viewed as a national hero. Tehran has never fully let that go. Now add February of this year, when American and Israeli strikes killed Khamenei himself, the second irreplaceable Iranian figure lost to U.S. action in 6 years. From Iran's perspective, this isn't escalation. This is retribution for two of the most significant losses in the country's modern history, and Trump, as the man currently occupying the office that ordered the most recent one, has effectively become the face of both grievances at once. So Trump's threat lands inside a moment already stretched to its breaking point. Just days earlier, on July 7th, Iranian forces struck 3 commercial tankers moving through the Strait of Hormuz, shattering a ceasefire that had held since a formal peace memorandum was signed only weeks before in Switzerland. The United States responded with strikes of its own. Iran hit back at American-linked bases across the Gulf, and Trump stood in front of reporters at a NATO summit and declared the ceasefire flatly over, calling Iran's leadership scum and further negotiation a waste of time. That was the temperature of the relationship in the days immediately before this assassination threat surfaced, a fragile peace already in pieces, both governments trading blows, and now, on top of all of it, a credible plot against the American president's life. And here is where the story takes a turn almost nobody expected. In the very same set of remarks, Trump also said something that seemed to contradict the fury of his missile threat entirely. He claimed Iran was privately eager to negotiate, saying, "We knocked the hell out of Iran. They are dying to settle. We gave them a week off for a funeral because we're nice." Read those two statements side by side. 1,000 missiles locked and loaded, aimed at your entire country. And, in almost the same breath, "They're dying to settle. We're being nice to them." That is not the language of a man expecting war. That is the language of a man trying to look unbeatable at the negotiating table while simultaneously making sure nobody in Tehran mistakes strength for an invitation. Then there's the twist that constitutional lawyers immediately jumped on, the part of this story with almost no coverage outside legal circles. Trump claimed the military had already received standing orders, meaning if he were killed, the destruction of Iran would happen automatically, already authorized, already in motion. But constitutional experts pushed back hard on that idea within hours. No American president, they explained, can create what amounts to a dead man's switch that bypasses the constitutional transfer of power. If Trump were assassinated, the decision to strike would not belong to the man who issued the threat. It would belong to whoever became president next, under the normal chain of succession, regardless of what Trump posted the night before. In other words, the single most terrifying part of his warning, the idea that his death would automatically trigger an unstoppable, pre-ordered war, may not even be legally possible. So where does that leave things right now? Iran's new supreme leader has publicly promised vengeance. An Israeli intelligence warning reportedly describes an active assassination plot. The American president has threatened to erase an entire country in response, while also claiming, almost in the same sentence, that Iran privately wants to make peace. Legal experts are now debating whether his most extreme threat could even be carried out the way he described it. And underneath every part of this, the ceasefire both countries signed only weeks ago already lies in ruins, with tankers burning in the Strait of Hormuz and both militaries trading strikes in the open. Which brings us back to that message, posted quietly on a Friday night. 1,000 missiles, locked, loaded, aimed at an entire nation. It reads like the end of diplomacy. But everything happening around it, the funeral crowds, the intelligence warnings, the constitutional debate over whether his own threat can legally be enforced, tells a messier story, one where nobody, not Washington, not Tehran, not even the president who wrote those words, seems fully certain what happens if either side actually pulls the trigger first.